when the Emmy nominations came out, I was happy for a lot of shows, but I probably screamed and fist pumped more when I saw a certain show pop up, and that was Cobra Kai, because I have been on this show since day one, from your YouTube days all the way to Netflix, and now with season 4, which seems to be approaching down the track, big light. I could see it coming, can't get here soon enough, and who better to talk to than the creators of Cobra Kai, Josh, John, and Hayden. Let's start off with congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now that we've talked about the pleasantries, I got a bone to pick with you guys.
All right.
So I was talking to somebody you may or may not know, William Zabka. You may have heard of him. You know, he's
not familiar, but
yeah,
it's a good name.
Yeah, Billy Zabka. And
that's okay.
That guy,
from Back to School. Yeah,
the guy from Back to School, Triple Indy. You might know that guy.
Right.
So I was talking to him, and we were talking about the show, season 4, etc. And I point blank asked him, "Is Terry Silver coming back in season 4?" Didn't give it to me. The very next day, y'all broke the story. I could have had the exclusive. I feel like you guys are to blame for this. It's your fault that he didn't give it to me. So I guess my first question is, why do you guys hate me?
It's just too many reasons. We love you. We love you so much. You're there from the beginning. We would never do this to you.
We've lied to journalists far and wide. We lied to the New York Times during season 1 when they asked us if Martin Kove would be joining the show. We said absolutely not, and raised my hand and gave my word. So that's worth nothing. But it's the secret. It's the secret for the fans. We want that day one experience. We don't want it to be ruined by a trailer. We don't want it to be ruined by a leak. We're as protective as you can possibly be without a Game of Thrones protection type of budget. But this season, it felt like, let's do something a little different. Instead of playing that, we're never going to tell you game, forever and ever. Let's just throw it out there. There was a date that was going to be thrown out, and until that date, there is a giant steel door that Terry Silver lived behind. But now we've opened that door and we've shown you that he lives there, and you will have to wait a little longer to see what happens inside that steel door.
Was he always part of the plan to come back in this season? Was that the sort of the arc you guys were going for?
I think, we really liked the idea of teasing Terry Silver out. He's kind of name checked and referenced in the first 2 seasons. And then in the 3rd season, you see him in the Vietnam, flashback backstory of young Kreese. So we try to write for an audience that's as obsessed with the Karate Kid franchise as us, and would love Terry Silver coming back, but also for the people out there who are less familiar with the Karate Kid franchise, for the young, like 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids of the original fans, they need to understand and appreciate who Terry Silver is. And if they, for the uninitiated, what we've done the first 3 seasons is really kind of build up this character. So now we're ready. We're ready to, let it all out.
And it's gonna be glorious.
Speaking of glorious, because I've been connecting the dots, and I know this is a futile attempt, but I'm going to try anyways. I have been seeing recently some training shots of a certain actor who played one Mike Barnes back in the day. I don't know. Have you heard of him at all, Mike Barnes?
We are familiar with him, yes.
Yes. And he looks awfully motivated, or was motivated, to prepare for something. Could that something be involved with you guys?
A lot of the actors who've been in the franchise, are interested in being on the show. Since season 1, when they got to see a number of their, former co-stars return, and then as we've each season brought more of them back, everyone knows that there's that moment where they could get the call, and Sean is somebody who has expressed interest in returning publicly. He's somebody who is, certainly meaningful in the Karate Kid universe. It's certainly possible that he could show up again in the series, and perhaps he's already filmed.
I like to say if you're a fan of Mike Barnes and want to see that character come back, we're definitely the show to do it.
Yeah.
And so tune into Cobra Kai to find out, because we're the best bet. And I understand where those fans are coming from. So we'll see.
He might be on Bridgerton. It's
You're
possible. Right. Mike Barnes, but no.
We're not going to see him on AFC Richmond or anything.
You never
might
know.
see him there as well. But no, it's always possible. Again, if Mike Barnes were to return, you'll either see it on the show or there'll be a fantastic announcement like there was with this, and you'll just have to wait and see.
Y'all know the answer and you won't effing tell me. It's so freaking annoying. You're just sitting there smiling,
Pleasure gratification, though. Like when you finally get to the finish line, it all washes over you.
Screw gratification. I just want to know, is he going to be in this? There's a war coming. You've all set up this war. There are more pieces coming. I know I'm supposed to be unbiased with all the reporting and whatnot, but I'm really into this. This means a lot.
We appreciate how into it you are. We're really into it too. We want there to be the great enjoyment of, seeing the story unfold, how it's supposed to unfold. And, unfortunately, you'll have to wait and see on this one.
But the brilliance in how you guys weave in these characters from this Miyagi verse, if you want to call it that, that's one I know people have called it in different publications, is how you don't just say, hey, here's Elizabeth Shue's character from back in the day. You guys write it in such a way that it makes sense. Bringing Terry Silver in now makes sense. Bringing Elizabeth Shue in last season makes sense. Bringing Mike Barnes in this season makes sense.
Or does it not?
Or are you going to find something out that would be like, oh, well, I guess that's never going to be able to happen. I mean, the world, nobody's seen season 4 yet. What we could say is we know that, we cater to the hardest core fans and the people who are just like randomly tuned into it. And we try to get both. And so, that we know that there's people out there who are passionate about Barnes, but, there are people passionate about Silver, and there are multiple seasons without seeing him. So, it's about teasing and, sometimes giving the audience what they want, sometimes not, because to keep the suspense going.
So just tell me what episode Julie Pierce appears in this season, please.
She's in 10 out of 10.
Oh, she is.
She's in all 10. You print that far and wide.
I'll take it. Now, if that actually is true, that is going to be amazing. But
that would be amazing. But listen, if she returns, you'll.
Oh, I love it. If he returns, you just won't give me anything. You were too good at this.
That's another one where if you want to see Julie Pierce return, my guess is we are the best bet of all the shows. So you should keep tuning in, because
don't watch Top Chef is what you're saying.
It's possible. Anything's possible, but I would just
say slightly more likely.
We have a higher probability.
There might be another Julie Pierce, a different Julie Pierce.
That's true.
But the Julie Pierce from Karate Kid 4 is most likely to be on our show.
Now, you're not going to give me much, but I'm going to ask the question, because this has gotten me nowhere. So yes, that's my name. Yes. Next question.
Will Dugan be on the show from Karate Kid 4? Sorry.
You're killing me. What can you tell me about season 4? Like, what will the fans experience this season?
I'll say the most important thing about season 4 is that we've been writing leading up to season 4 for this entire time. We always knew that moment that these two iconic characters could lay down their swords, and look at each other with newfound respect, and not just a common enemy, but the right time and the right place to actually try to make a go of this. That's that's kind of like, it's like season one all over again in our heads in terms of where your creativity is coming from, because you are in a brand new world with these two characters in the types of headspace that you have the freedom to, you know, to expand and contract. Whereas the same can be said for season one, where we hadn't seen these guys in a while and we were reintroducing what their vibe is as adults. Now we get to explore what are their vibe where they're not, you know, trying to, you know, to be up in each other's face or run away from each other or complain about each other, you know, and they're making a concerted effort. And I think that's a really fun place to jump off from. And we want to deliver upon that. You know, what if these guys, you know, were able to actually bow to each other and respect each other? What would that lead to? What would happen? So it's a really fun exploration of this détente and what that means, and will it last, and what are the consequences of it.
I would also say, like, you know, especially last season 3, everybody was kind of spread to the wind, and you had, you know, Johnny dealing with Miguel's, you know, getting him out of the wheelchair, and Daniel in Okinawa, and Kreese, you know, now being in charge of Cobra Kai, kind of on his own island for the first time. And season 4 is like everybody is aligned, you know, everybody is on the same path. There's this All Valley tournament that kind of gives the season, you know, a little bit, you know, more of a, you know, I don't know, kind of big Uber movie feel to it. You know, it still has got some of the soap opera elements of weaving from, you know, to different stories and different characters, but there's this overarching, you know, destination that you're feeling, that everybody's like, you know, has their path towards, and that's a cool thing with season 4.
What's Terry Silver's motivation here? Obviously it's a phone call, obviously it's to help a friend, but fans I'm sure would love at least a little more as to why is he deciding to come into this, lack of a better term, war.
Well, we can't give you, you know, the details of, you know, what's in Terry's head there. But because it's, you want to enjoy the show. But, you know, like what we can say about Terry is, you know, 35 years have passed, you know, since we've seen him, and we're going to get to see kind of where he's landed right now. What we pick up with him today, we get to see where he's at today. We get to see, you know, in what ways he's the same, in what ways he's different, and what his motivations are. So, you know, I think if you love Terry Silver in the past, there's, you know, he's still, you know, can kick ass. He still knows karate. I mean, he's a tough guy. But, you know, who knows what his motivations are and exactly what he has in store for the season. I don't think we can, you know, say specifically, you know, how he's going to react to everything that's going on right now in the Valley.
You know, if you, all we know about him, if, you know, for the people who haven't seen season 4 is what you saw in Karate Kid 3, and his motivation in that was just, you know, to help, you know, his friend, and you see the lengths he's willing to go to. Now, you know, it's 35 years later, but like, you know, what we do is we take, you know, Karate Kid 3, we look at it and we try to give it like that Christopher Nolan treatment of like, how do we make this feel as real, you know, today as possible, while not like retconning what we saw in Karate Kid 3. So, you know, our hope is that, like, it's weird. What we're doing is we're trying to entertain, you know, the audience, but also make what Karate Kid 3 was, this like piece of canon that actually is true.
I think people are assuming he's coming back in this villain role. He might very well be. We obviously don't know. There might be, he might have changed a bit over 35 years. It's just from my perspective. We don't necessarily know who was on the phone call. We know that Terry Silver's coming back. People connect the dots. There could be a lot between what we think and what we know. And that's just coming from my perspective. I know you all know the answers. And I just think people need to take a step back and say, yeah, Terry Silver's coming back. Yeah, he said things like, we're going to bring the pain, etc. I mean, people change. Maybe he's going to come back from another perspective. I mean, is that fair to say?
We'll see.
Anything's fair to say. Maybe he's worse. Maybe maybe he's been torturing other teenagers for the next 30 plus years. You never know. It could be. He could have stayed exactly the same. He could be worse. He could be better. But we're not going to tell you.
This is like me.
One thing's consistent. We're not telling you.
I'm
anything.
shooting hockey pucks at all three of you, and you all got your goalie equipment. You're going, whoosh, yeah. And literally, you all three are pitching a shutout, and it's awe-inspiring how y'all have just deflected left and right. But you've yet told me at least a little bit for the fans, and I really do appreciate that. Now let's talk about something that has involved me making reactions because I can't get what I want as from the reporter perspective or the fan perspective. How gratifying is it to see where you were in the beginning to now you're on this list, you're nominated for an Emmy? I mean, that's gotta just blow your mind to think of this journey as to where you are right now.
It's been really special. I mean, I could say this whole journey, like, it's weird. Like, Cobra Kai has kind of the underdog story, much like, the themes of the original movie. We're three guys who've been friends for 25 years, bonded over movies and TV, including The Karate Kid, have been talking for a long time about doing this kind of thing. And then to, have the opportunity to get Ralph and Billy attached to the show, and then to find a home, when we pitched it around town, a lot of places were interested, but YouTube at the time said, before we had written a script, go make a season of the show. So we conceived of it, frankly, as a Netflix show first and foremost. We always saw it as something that would fit really well on the Netflix platform, but the YouTube team, they struck first, they struck hard, and they gave us the creative freedom and the support to make the series that people have fallen in love with. And we had the rare experience of that, when it premiered on YouTube, it felt like a big deal. We were seeing all the comments, and a lot of people were enjoying it. And it was, we had, the great response from fans and critics alike. But, as the time is going on, we did recognize that, in our everyday lives, many people had not seen the show, and many people who would enjoy the show hadn't seen it. So for us to, for season 3, which we filmed while still working with YouTube, to have the opportunity to shop that show, to bring it over to Netflix, to have seasons 1 and 2 relaunch in a whole new way that changed things overnight, and then for season 3 to premiere there, to see this response from everybody, all over the world, is what we dreamed of from the very beginning. And it's been amazing to see that, and for us to, find ourselves with an Emmy nomination for Best Series is something that, you watch the Emmys when you're a kid, with your parents, and it's one of those things that, is super cool. And we're just, we're thrilled that people are enjoying the show the way that it was intended, and that it's reaching the eyeballs, and that, being nominated for an Emmy is just sort of a cherry on the sundae.
Anything to add, Josh or Hayden?
You said it all. I mean, it's something we hoped for. It's something, we write toward wanting to make something that is universally beloved and hits those notes that, you hope will be, recognized and celebrated. And, we really hope that this is, the beginning of some more serious looks at our show for some of these departments that knock it out of the park, like our composers, who year after year, just full orchestras are working overtime, and these guys are composing with the, far less runway than we have to put together these themes that they are, they're playing with year after year. Our production design is second to none. Ryan Berg, not only rebuilt Mr. Miyagi's house for the, the 4th time, but has continued to renovate and expand, upon, that house with all our dreams for where we take, this show and this landscape, costume design, et cetera, casting. There's endless amounts of people who put their energy into this show. So it's amazing for the show to get this nomination, because, we really look at it as a reflection of everybody's hard work. But we also hope that it, people start getting singled out in a really nice way as the seasons progress.
What's the hardest part writing for something that is so established in the pop culture lexicon as the Karate Kid universe?
I think, you know, on the one hand, you want the show to be a continuation and stay true to the movie. On the other hand, times have changed with storytelling, and sometimes, you know, we have to pick and choose when we're going modern and when we're going kind of classic. And I think one of the things people like about the show is the earnestness that, you know, at times it is a little bit of that Disney movie feel that you got from the original. But then there's those other times that do kind of go to that meta place of, wait a second, this is all about, you know, a giant karate war. And, you know, we have to pick and choose where we zoom in and zoom out, and how, you know, there are times where the audience is sort of meant to cry. And usually you don't have that type of scene with a, you know, like a scene where Amanda is telling, you know, Johnny and Daniel, like, you know, you two, you know, childhood karate rivals are going to get blood all over the, you know, the pool deck. So, you know, it's picking and choosing those moments and figuring out, when are we, you know, when are we a comedy? When are we in action? When are we, you know, we don't like consciously do it, you know, but, you know, this is probably, of any show out there, got, you know, it goes to wild tonal places in terms of the spectrum, and keeping that all happening while telling a story is the trick. Because there's times where, you know, we could really do something really funny, and, you know, but it would just take away from the earnestness of, you know, the original movies. And then there's times where it's like, okay, but this is a little too cheesy, and we need to do something to kind of undercut and be funny a little bit. So that's like the little balancing act, I think, particularly with this show, to keep the original fans like loving it, yet they're also older now and have a little bit more picky, you know, taste when it comes to realism and stuff like that.
And that's why your show is what it is, in my opinion, because you guys strike that balance. It would be easy to kind of play the same notes on some level, but then you guys look at a character like Johnny Lawrence and you're able to kind of show the progression that we didn't see, and see the evolution of Johnny and see who he is. We get to see that he does see some of the errors of his ways and becomes a better and better man as these seasons goes on. But the one thing we don't see is that progression technology wise. And there is nothing funnier in my mind when you guys come up with a tech scene and he just has no ability to run a computer or anything like that. And I guess that isn't too far from the truth after talking with him a few weeks back.
Right.
He wasn't a huge fan. I mean, he was okay with the Zoom interview, but I guess it had to be set up before we did it or something along those lines. So I guess there's truth in art.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's a liberating form of storytelling. I'll say, like, you know, one of the things that I love about the show is that it's a reflection of life, that sometimes in life you have really sad experiences, and sometimes it's fun and silly, and sometimes it's scary. And there, you know, in life we experience all the range of emotions, and to be able to bring the audience to different places, but with characters that are at all times behaving as the character would. Like, I think as long as a character stays true to what you believe they are, and it's like, you know, it all makes sense, and that goes into the writing, it goes into the performance themselves. You could bring them anywhere, you know, and as long as the character feels like they're ringing true, then it can be our show can be a comedy in, you know, an entire episode or through several scenes, and then, you know, it could be a hard, difficult drama in another, and an action scene in another. So it's fun to be able to flex all sorts of different kinds of muscles while making the show.
Now, what are the odds that Martin shows up with a Cobra Kai tie to the Emmys?
100%. I mean,
yeah, I was going to say 100%.
no one embodies the Cobra Kai spirit quite like Martin Kove. It's he lives and breathes Cobra Kai. That character, defined, what a villain was for, a large, portion of people our age. You look at, who was the big bad in the 80s, it was Darth Vader and it was Sensei Kreese. And he relishes it, he enjoys it, he bathes in it. He's the nicest man in the world. But he recognizes the fun and the beauty and the power of, this imposing figure. And yeah, I mean, the real fun of the series, one of the most fun things has been dissecting that character and, kind of taking Kreese apart and putting it back together again. And, exploring what makes a guy like that tick. How do you make some micro moves with a character like that to show some development and some changing points of view, even in later life. And it's an interesting nuanced character, because on the surface there's no nuance. It's, Kreese is black and white, and the fun is finding, those moments where there are just little, pin drops of daylight that kind of poke into that veneer.